Paints the designs that fly from the page to the mind, and our minds that inspire inscribes ideas and sights that can change our lives. Yeah, woohoo!
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that voice. I don't know. Welcome everybody to Comics Carnales, our inaugural episode. Yes, we have so many really cool things to talk to you about today. We're going to be talking about launching the 13, about Sequential Latinidad. We're going to have a conversation with the one and only Professor Latinx. To launch things, let me introduce myself. My name is David Bowles. I am the co-host of this podcast and the co-publisher of Chispa Comics. I am a writer from Deep South Texas, and I have written and translated some 36 different books, among them several graphic novels, a lot of award-winning titles, and it is a real pleasure to be working in this space and providing a venue for lots of amazing Latinx creators and a place for us to have great conversations. With me tonight is my co-host and co-publisher of Chispa, the award-winning Chicano comic book creator, Héctor Rodríguez III. Woohoo! A native of the border town of Eagle Pass, Texas, Héctor is the creator of the long-running indie comic El Peso Hero and the co-founder of Texas Latino Comic Con. He also serves as director of development for Mass Republic, where he oversees the creative development of Mass Republic Lucha Media properties. Hey, Hector, how you doing?
Hey, awesome. And long overdue. It's about, long overdue. We have a dedicated Chispa podcast. All the up-and-coming greatest books we have from the community, not also that we get to charla with our carnales,
Yes, our carnales and many of whom will be carnalitas. That'll be really fantastic. Why don't you tell people? I mean that's basically what we're trying to accomplish with this podcast, right? Wouldn't you say?
And it's like, with all respect to the other podcasts, this specific podcast is a really great insight to our journey through Chispa Comics, through the creative field of small press, because technically we are part of that small press, and with our partners Scout, we have a venue for distribution, and a greater umbrella, and so we are, we're trying to bring some new unique voices through the publishing field, and now with our podcast we're able to encompass even more voices, and just have fun. We're all geeks, we're all nerds, and we love our medium. We all love our sequential art, and so we're all surrounded by great stories, great art, great music.
Yeah. And as we talk about these things, we will undoubtedly touch some other media as well, because of course comics get adapted into TV series and movies, and Chispa itself is a venture between the Hollywood production company Mucho Mas Media and Scout Comics. So we we've gotten our toes wet with the Black Demon film, which was really amazing, and we'll, I'm sure, over the course of this first season, be talking about a lot of really cool things. So Hector, let's talk a little bit about the latest in Latina comics. What have you been seeing?
Let's do, and for those that are listening, and so we don't feel offended if you haven't been mentioned, just please, comment, plug in, share, and so feel free.
Yeah, there will be many episodes. We'll try to mention you at some point. Trust me.
Right. And so I some few shout outs, give a shout out to Rafael Flores, the return of Camisats. His Kickstarter is in the last legs. So check it out, feel free supporting it. You know, we also have coming up next Saturday, we have Mexibaricad with in the celebration of Dia de los Muertos. So if you're around the area, go on and support. I believe it begins at 1 o'clock till it's 1 o'clock till 9. So that's really cool. We have new episode of Mis Primos podcast. So give a shout out, special guest right over here, talking about all Dia de los Muertos, story behind it, really great social, logical, cultural nuances, great conversations. From El Paso, Texas, we got Rey Ramos Kryptonos. Number 4 is out in store, so check it out. Support your Latinx. And of course, yours truly, El Paso here, Sicario War is available right now. Get on, only $9.99. Support it on Amazon. What else? What do you have, David?
So I mean, I've been thinking a lot, because I do like young adult and middle grade comics. And yesterday I was at the South Texas Book Festival and hanging out with a couple of really, really cool comic creators, including my buddy Raul III, who co-created. Yeah, he was down here in McAllen.
Nice.
He and I co-created Clockwork Curandera, the first volume, which, as you know, was nominated for a really, really lovely Eisner. But there are a couple other things that I want to point out to people. Some really, really great books, graphic novels. The first one is Frontera, that came out earlier this year. Words by Julio Anta and art by Jacoby Salcedo. Just a really, really moving story, powerful story. I blurbed it. It's always cool when you blurb it, because like sometimes they put your name like right across the top of it, like even above the creator's name. So I don't know how Julio and Jacoby feel about that, but there it is. Like, el primer nombre es el mío, and then so I'm like, oh wow, it makes me feel special. No, but it's an amazing book. And then the two creators that I was really excited to hang out with yesterday. First was Christine Shugs, who's Ay Mija, My Bilingual Summer in Mexico, is really amazing. And she, it's kind of like a quasi memoir. She wrote and illustrated it. It's really, really amazingly well done. And she is just a real powerhouse, a lot of talent. In the, kids were enwrapped listening to her talk to them about that process and draw for them and so forth. Also there was Pedro Martin, who's Mexikid, just came out, and there you go. You've got it in your hands. What a great
it's my free comic book day copy that I
isn't it nice? Get free copies. One of the things I love about being published with like Penguin and HarperCollins, stuff like that, is like I regularly will just get books that I didn't even ask for. They're just like, oh, I think David will like this, and maybe he'll say something nice about it. And that makes it easier for me to be like, when they ask me to blurb, I'll be like, oh, okay, you guys are giving me a lot of free books. So at the same time, my to be read pile is like the Leaning Tower of Pisa now.
Yeah, your backlog is in there.
It's really bad. And then Oni Press just announced something I'm really excited about. Our very own Terry Blas, who's a Chispa collaborator and the writer of the upcoming 13 miniseries, the 13 Rise of the Five. He, in collaboration with Maddie Newton and then artist Lydia Anslow and colors Claudia Aguirre, have this really great kind of like slice of life story coming out in 2024. So I mean, it was just announced and they showed the cover, and I just thought I would bring it up. It's a fairy tale-esque story that follows Blanca, a young woman from Idaho who moves to New York City to pursue her dream of becoming a fashion designer. And I dig those kinds of stories, and like, as co-publishers of Chispa, you and I are always also looking for great stuff like that, like our Thanks Romina series as well. That is, young women pursuing their dreams and bumping up against the world and all of its craziness.
Right? These are stories that are relevant, speak to everybody, and so these are stories that transcend their genres, and so we always keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And talking about like what we look for, this feels like a really good segue into the 13. So we wanted to launch with Chispa lots of different things and provide a venue for people's own IP and so forth. But we wanted to work with Mucho Mas Media to create our own IP that we could then hire people to come and help us expand it. And for people who are not familiar with writing comics, it could be like a sandbox in which to like earn their stripes, learn the ropes, and work with us as editors. And boy, I mean, did we get some really amazing stuff lined up. And it's beginning to drop. The very first book in this Chispa verse is the very first origin story of a member of the 13, which is our like Mexican American superhero team. And oh wow, look at
that. I love this
fancy metal. The 13 is this group of young people who turn 18 all in the course of 13 days. They had been born one after the other, and on their 18th birthday, their powers manifest. They are chispas, which is what we call superheroes in our universe, and each one of them has a power or a set of powers that's connected to their Mesoamerican day signs. So, for example, the first young person, Bruno, was born on the Mesoamerican day of one vulture, and as a result, he has powers that connect to that sort of thing. Being able to fly, being able to detect rot the way a vulture,
rot, like that evil, negative, and stuff.
Like psychological moral rot, and not.
Right.
Although I suppose he probably can detect like regular rot too. That'd be hilarious. We have like some scene down the road where he's like, oh, there's something rotten within a mile radius of here, and they're like, oh god.
But it brings some really good moral dilemmas too. It's like, are you going to judge somebody just before their actions? He's able to detect.
Yeah.
But it's so.
What's that? Remember that movie? Oh, Minority Report. Remember that movie, Minority Report with Tom Cruise? Like, if you can detect future crimes, should you be able to arrest people for that? It's interesting. So yeah, it does create a dilemma, and of course, as you may suspect, those of you who are listening to us, or if you've been paying attention, Héctor is the writer of that very first of the 13 one-shots. And we are doing one a month over the course of the next 13 months. So, and we will be talking in a bit with the writer of the next one. Talk to us a little bit about writing Zopilote in that whole experience, because, you got to look at it from the production side as well. But I mean, when you were writing,
it's writing is, to me, the process, it's very fulfilling, but exhausting because you're giving everything out. I have to be around that world, I have to be 100% in the footsteps of those characters and just roll my head into that sphere in order to naturally, organically think about the character's motivation, its inner working, as well as it's how their presence, manifests to others. How others look to that, to how they act. And so with Zopilote, it's that issue. He's 18, and so you have to think about a teenager, especially in a very urban setting, in Ciudad Mexico as well. And so, I hate to say anti-Batman, and it was Zopilote. He's very young. There's a sense of him being a bit naive too, but he's pure of heart. At the same time, he always is looking for the best of his community too. And with Zopilote, there's some Easter eggs out there, especially near the end, and my mom caught it, because I know, and growing up with some characters and watching Mexican cinema, you can see them, they're there, but just keep an eye on near the end.
Yeah.
But it was a great process to really dwell into the moral dilemmas of judging somebody before their actions, and so especially him being detect that rot, and then at the same time seeing violence being thrust upon people that are good-hearted, and so how he takes that into heart, and as well, in a lot of my characters, I like them to keep them grounded in history too. With Zopilote, with Bruno's great grandfather being connection of the Las Águilas Aztecas in World War II pilots, and so and him carrying that moniker Zopilote, with his that's fun to me, ground those characters into.
And we both know that, and we both know that in doing so, you kind of like created the opportunity for us to eventually have a little mini series about an earlier iteration of the 13 that was existed during World War II. So I'm looking forward to like one day doing that. Since we're talking about like writing character stuff like that, why don't we go ahead and bring in our next guest, because he's got a lot of insight, and both of you created really interesting families for your characters, and also pointed back in the past at other people that had existed before with these powers. And so I find that really, really fascinating. So Héctor, introduce to everybody our next
guest. This profe needs no introduction. Professor Frederick Aldama, Professor Latinx, and I remember early on with my career with Puzzle Hero, it was like Professor X calling me like, hey, there's a greater community of you, and he came, he brought me in, and so it was like 2013, early 2013, and near that end, and so of course, going a little bit of his bio, if you don't know him, award-winning author of fiction, comics, and scholarly books. He uses insights from narrative theory, cognitive science, and Latinx critical cultural theory to enrich his understanding of the creation and distribution and consumption of Latinx pop culture, especially comic books, TV, animation, and film. At UT Austin, he holds the Jacob and Francis Singer Massacre Chair in the Humanities, is a director of Latinx Pop Lab, and is affiliate university, a professor of UT Department of English, and more. And so, thank you so much.
So a wee sampling of his massive curriculum. It is.
Oh man!
Welcome. Well, how are you doing?
Oh man, thank you, both of you. And this is coming from two of the most gigantic creatives in all of the above fields. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me on the show. And yes, like you all, man, like my Leaning Tower of Pisa is just like, right? All the titles that are just like it's the sirens that are beckoning me, right? Yeah. Constantly.
Stop writing. Just sit down and read. Teenager again.
Facts.
Yeah. And you know what? I would willingly, gladly go and be like, find myself on an island with, gosh, I don't know. Well, I have celiac, so it would have to be gluten-free island, and have a stack or all my stacks of books where I could finally actually, get in and do all that, wondrous exploring that we do with comics. But thanks for having me, Carnales. Thank you.
Yeah, and I noticed that, and people will notice that the main like background that we have here are our Trinidad, the big three, Zopilote, the Wake, and Pyroclast, and Fede, your fun task was to take this character of Pedro Pete Lumeras, who finds himself with this power, like basically becoming a living, like, I don't know, pyroclastic flow of magma. It's just wild, and to try to breathe humanity and some debility, some softness into a figure that is, probably one of the most frightening and most imposing of the 13. So, like, how did you set about doing that?
Yeah, well, first of all, just if you both will allow me a little, I love the backstory to, you all giving me my chispa and like, or letting me choose my spark. And, you're like, here's a kind of a, a menu. This is our, as you just beautifully explained, the 13 and why. And, um, I was thinking in that instant when I saw, and by the way, can I just say, I love that you gave us the conceit of a name and our chispa, but that was it. And the rest was like, beautiful.
Build the
Anyway.
family, so I figure all the rest of it out. This is what their power is. But we don't know where the person lives. We don't, So we want it because it grounds it to allow somebody to be able to do that. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, talk about Marvel method, Marvel way, but like on a whole other different scale, right? Because you trust that the creatives that you're going to be putting together on this are going to not take us to, Peter Parker's, Brooklyn, but to, in this case, San Sebastian Califas, California, where we've got Italian, Irish, but also Latinx and Filipino. In fact, the Latinos and the Filipinos are the majority, in this town because of, well, we know, like, the kind of forced migrations. All that stuff. Yeah.
I was going to say those, the what do you call them? That route, the Manila route that, that would stop on the coast of, after coming from the Philippines, bringing Asians and other things to the Americas, would stop there. And so you'd have all kinds of mestizo people and Filipinos, like, and other Asian people spending a couple of months before going on to Acapulco. And so a lot, I mean, the Southern California is basically settled by those people and who blend then with indigenous peoples that were already there.
Yeah, no, completely. So anyway, that backstory, I love that. And one of my favorites, for a little more backstory, really quickly, growing up in California, East LA, to Irish and Guatemalan, Irish dad and Guatemalan mama, my mom at 18 got on a bus because she'd heard all the stories of our family in Guatemala, but had never met them. And she went down, but never made it to Guatemala. She got off the bus in Mexico City and fell in love with the city, got a job, pretty much emancipated herself, like, tired of, all the stuff that she had to deal with growing up with this, basically this pig of a dad. My Irish American grandfather. Anyway, my point is that I was born in Mexico City. We moved up when I was 5. Things didn't work out with my dad, who's, puro CDMX Chilango. And the fact is, when we arrived and I was going to school in a rural North California little town, I was told not to speak that dirty Mexican. And when I started speaking English, I was told not to speak it with an accent. But my point is here that it was the tienda at the corner and the spin rack with the Fantastic Four and Ben Grimm that pretty much taught me English. And not only taught me English, it taught me that I wasn't alone, and taught me that there could be other ways to deal with being bullied and so on and so forth. And so when you handed me or put the menu in front of me, and Pyroclast just was like, it spoke on a really deep level to me, not only my affection, my deep, long affection for Ben Grimm and the thing, but also for my entire experience, right?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And it's always exciting when we have the opportunity to write from the perspective of a character that resonates with us so much. So without giving too much away, because we want people to pick this up when it comes out in just a few weeks from now, around November 25th or so. When you're crafting his family, did you lean into some of the things that you had experienced as well, and try to craft family members that that felt, you know, like maybe drawn from your own life, even though they were maybe not like copies of your relatives?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think isn't that Héctor and David? I mean, Carnales, we are always drawing from, inspired by these little sparks, right, in our own personal adventures and lives. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's a lot that is biographical. There's a lot that's biographical across characters. So, you know, the Tio George is a combo of, you know, yeah, an uncle, but, you know, also a lot of me, you know, the age of George and so on and so forth is kind of closer to me and my experiences. At the same time, Pete, you know, loves the kinds of music I still listen to and that I love listening to in the 90s, like Nine Inch Nails, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins. You know, it's like I love that alt rock stuff, man. Jane's
Addiction.
Yeah. And
we're all the younger people who are watching us are like, oh, here we go. The 50 somethings are like drifting back into the 90s.
No, but you know what I'm finding is that Gen Z are super into like the kinds of things that we grew up with.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you remember how when Hector's a little bit younger than us, but you remember when in the 80s we'd be like, there's no way the 70s is ever going to come back, and then it kind of did. Well, I was like the 80s and early 90s ever going to come back, and it kind of has. People are like rediscovering the music, and there's like a kind of like neo grunge thing happening, and it's fascinating.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of me woven in and throughout. Now, of course, it's a contemporary moment, so we have to, you know, in the story and the story world itself, while there's a lot of me, and but it has to make sense, right, for this character and his journey. And, you know, this is, you know, Pete's going through a lot, and he's struggling to understand not just his own desires and feelings, but there's something not quite right. Like he doesn't have the full, you know, all the pieces of the puzzle fit together until he starts to, you know, basically like erupt in anger, and his skin the epidermal layer of his skin starts to thicken, and, you know, he just heats up and starts burning like magma, like hot lava. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, the costuming is really important here. It says a lot about our own histories of, you know, needing to kind of thicken metaphorically and physically our body armor because of different ways that we've been bullied, whether it's our sexuality or our ethnicity or language. You know, any marker of difference or multiple markers of difference, and how we've been kind of forced, you know, either into shadowed corners or to fortify and thicken. And so, yeah, there's a lot in Pete that resonates, I think, that will resonate with our readers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And it kind of gets at like what we're trying to accomplish with Chispas. You know, Hector, you mentioned Zopilote as being kind of like an anti-Batman, and, you know, what Fede is saying about, you know, the having this kind of power when you've been bullied, and like what that, you know, portends for your protection of other people who are being bullied is really important to us, because we wanted Chispas to be people who have these powers, but they're not like lone wolves or whatever. They are in, you know, embedded in family and community, and they use their power for the protection of their community. And that's something that, you know, without giving things away, we do see towards the end of the comic, Pete like struggling with how is he going to gain control of it, you know, a fine enough control over his powers to be able to do those things without harming his community. And so maybe what he needs to do is step away from his community for a bit until he's able to harness those powers. And I think that that's also a really brave thing, and because these are the people that he loves. He would rather not ever leave their side, and to, you know, all of them in all these books, everybody gets called away. They're all of them are graduating and they're all getting called away to college, a very particular college, by this shadowy figure who calls himself Father Tonal, who offers them like a free ride. And so, suddenly here's going to be Pete, like, going from Califas to West Texas to this obscure little, university that is, not a regular university at all. And I think that's really interesting, but it's got to be even harder for Bruno. No, Hector, tell me really quickly. Tell the audience why you decided to make Bruno from Mexico City. Nearly everybody else in the 13 is a Mexican American instead of a Mexican citizen, with the exception of the Dragenthrall character Guadalupe and Bruno. What motivated you? I mean, obviously the cover, like having CDMX in the background, like being, having the Angel of Liberty being, that's just so classic and so iconic. Compared against the New York City skyline or Chicago skyline, whatever it is, it's amazing. This, like, what was it that?
Well, it's important to also showcase readers in the United States that other countries are as prosperous or as beautiful as New York City, or the skylines of and it's also very important to showcase, bring up other, as Mexico, not Mexico, just sapien tone Mexico that is showcased in Hollywood, but it's something that is vibrant and that is modern too, and that great stories can be discovered in other urban centers, not just in the United States, and so in this case, we bring somebody that's completely from a different city, different country, but with a lot of the same internal struggles that a teenager faces, either in this case is Bruno, being too shy to ask a girlfriend, or somebody that is trying to, follow the footsteps of their great-great-grandfather that did more for the world, and so or be that positive chispa for the community like he's trying to do in the beginning, and before he's stopped by. I'm not giving anything away, but I do bring.
Yeah,
I always
there will be some complications. Yes, absolutely.
Complications with urban enforcers or the community.
Yeah, which I think is so great. Like his ability to detect rot, he lets him know that just a blind obedience to and faith in the authorities around you is not the smartest thing, because a lot of them have rotted inside as well. And so with disobedience. And clearly we've if anybody's paying attention, we've clearly set Zopilote up to be kind of like the leader of the team. He looks a little bit like Batman, can fly like Superman, is able to see what golden age hero was it that was able to see the evil in the hearts of men? Was that the back when it was like the Phantom and the
Phantom. Was it the Phantom?
So one of those early ones, Phantom or the Spectre, or one of those guys will say, "Well, everybody's gonna be like, oh,
the question,
Carnales, huh?"
The question was it some Eisner? No.
Watch me look it up right now on the internet.
Yeah, I mean it's just, but no, it's something that I really want to showcase. It's that the realities of the authority figure in communities of color, in this case, in urban communities, something that it gave me the opportunity, which I did not have so much with El Paso Hero, that I wanted to explore too, especially with our social movements, so I think it was a great opportunity for me too.
Let me ask you both a quick question. And I know that David, I think that was Eisner's The Shadow that
I just put it up on the screen right now. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
But while we're correcting things, I put Peter Parker in Brooklyn, but as you know, that's because I'm so obsessed with Miles, and Miles is our Spidey in Brooklyn. Peter was in Queens, and of course Ben Grimm was in the Lower East Side. But real quick question: did you, speaking of Héctor, you mentioned the kind of ripples across important socio-political contemporary concerns. David, you echoed something that we all feel, which is definitely not a trust in the system. But how far are we even? I don't know if I can, what you can talk about with a general audience on this, but today's Latinx comics, and in particular Chispa, are there constraints? Like we want the entertainment, but we also, just like comics in their long, deep history, have also had a politics. How far can we go with that in our comic book spaces?
I mean, I think we could go pretty far. This is one of the reasons that I like the fact that we are the co-publishers. I can't assure anybody that people will buy our comics if we get way, way, way too political. But I think it's important to. I mean, I think people who are like, "Oh, I don't want politics in my comics," have not been paying attention, because politics have been in comics since the inception of comics, and a lot of our early superheroes were, Jewish men's responses to the fascism that was threatening their very lives, right? Their very existence, and so I because of the way we're setting up Chispas, we are clearly setting up a group of people that, if they wanted to, could do what some people have always suggested Superman ought to have done, and that is to stop the real villains in the world from continuing to perpetuate oppression and misery and poverty and stuff like that. And so I do think, again, without giving too much away, and Héctor and I just have like vague understandings of it, that we are building towards our major, massive, like world bending things that will happen, a decade down the road, are not going to be like multiverses and stuff like that. It's going to be like,
they're going to be grounded.
What would happen when the Chispas, all the Latina Chispas from the 13 in North America, to the Hurricanes and the Caribbean, to our Central American team and the South American team that we're going to develop? What happens when all these teams decide, you know what, it's time for this continent to be in the hands of the people and not in the hands of corporate masters? And I think that at the risk of already kind of poisoning the well, I think that question will be really, really fascinating, because of course there will be some Chispas who will want to continue the status quo, because I think that would be too upsetting and would damage people's lives. And so we might have a kind of, the kind of thing that you saw in the Civil War comics with Marvel, where you have people standing on either side of that. But it strikes me that
you have that you naturally, historically, you have that mistrust through.
Yeah. Because if we are setting up Chispas to be defenders of people and the people who spark change, then clearly one of those changes is going to be political, socio-political, economical, and it's gonna be complicated. But there will be a lot of perhaps more traditional superhero adventures along the way. So those of you who don't find that appealing, I mean, I'm not going to say what's wrong with you, but yeah, what's wrong with you? But anyway, there will be plenty of other things for you to enjoy. But I just do think that the nature of also the kinds of writers that we're bringing on board, we most of our writers are, typically left leaning, or at least, ideologically, maybe center left, or some of us are frankly like very progressive and very revolutionary. I'm not as interested in the stories that a conservative Hispanic might tell. I can imagine us having some Chispas that we create that are more conservative, and let's have those tensions play out. But yeah, I think that conservative, that the conservative Hispanic segment of our community has not done us a lot of good in the past 8 years, and I'm not particularly interested in raising their voices. That may turn people off, and again, that's fine. That's totally fine. I don't need everybody to be a fan of Chispa. That's totally cool. But I mean, I will add this. At least what we're doing initially with the 13 and these first couple of comics is a lot more essentially YA. It's a lot more about exploration of identity. These are all 17, 18-year-olds. In Terry Blas's miniseries, they're going to be like, turning 19 or whatever, this first year of college. We are going to be, when we're market the graphic novel versions of these, marketing as YA under our Cohete, imprint for younger readers. So we are initially like focusing a lot more on identity, personal stories of finding community and all that kind of stuff. So the bigger stuff that I'm talking about is much further down the road, and it's just an inclination that Hector and I have just because of our own interests. Yeah. So thanks, Fede, for getting us in trouble.
Yeah, no. It's interesting.
We're getting canceled now. All right.
No. Listen. I think it's really important for people to realize on a really deep level. And I teach intro to comics, and my students are, sometimes completely surprised, not only at the sophistication of the storytelling that comics offer, but in that sophistication, the ways that it at once can take us on a journey that is exciting and a journey that opens our eyes to the complex ways that we exist in the world. And this, since, as you mentioned, David, time, immemorial. So no, absolutely. Let me ask you though, both of you, while we're on the show, Black Demon was a real surprise to me, the film, in that the setup of that, I was like, okay, here we go. This is like business as usual. How am I somehow like, because I feel like I'm tied into this beautiful web that you both are weaving. How am I somehow involved in this in this narrative? And then it does that beautiful turn. I love it. And I think that maybe that's what we're kind of doing. Like, come and join us. And you may think it's business as usual, and we want you to feel welcome. Yeah. But while you're on this wild ride, you're going to see and feel and think something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is about using tropes as a hook, and then taking your reader by the hand and saying, okay, well, let me show you what's over the hill of these tropes. Although we weren't involved in writing the script, I wrote a lot of iterations of the script before we brought in another scriptwriter to take a slightly more commercial crack at it. And so there are some of my thematic fingerprints on that story. And a lot of it has to do with that kind of like setup and twist. And that's always a lot of fun. Okay. So you've mentioned teaching and so forth. Why don't you talk to us about some of your other projects outside of our Chispa verse? Because I know we've got a lot of stuff going on, and feel free to share your screen and show us some of the stuff you got going on.
Well, you brought up this kind of second phase of yours. Maybe you can, while I'm pulling up the screen, you can both, or talk a little bit about this middle grade YA space that you're going to be kind of breathing life into more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously we're dealing with students who are often reluctant readers, students who are brought up on kind of like a diet of manga and Western comics and animated TV shows, whether they're anime or Western cartoons. And one of the things that we notice in library after library, school library after school library, and I'm sure this is true of Hector, of your school where you work, as well as many of the schools that I visit as an author, is that those are the books that are most often checked out.
Yeah.
And we also know in terms of scholarship, that literacy is just as supported and developed through sequential art as it is sequential art with dialogue and captions, stuff like that, as it is through traditional prose. So we really, we want to tap into that and to make sure that young readers have access to stories by Latina creators, and we know that there are tons of them out there. And so it's one of the reasons we're kind of like trying to move in that space as well. Okay, so you've got something to show us, right? Let's look at that.
Yeah, so this is I'm talking with the both of you and kind of following this as it's been unfolding, and I believe this is going to be a part of your launch, your rocket launch.
Yes, the rocket launch for Coet. That's right. You're hearing it here first, folks.
This has been honestly two of you got this from my emails and texts and stuff. It's one of those when maybe it was like this for you, Héctor, with El Peso. David, I could name a gazillion books that it probably felt like this. It caught me like the spark, literally, like it was one of those I couldn't shake and I was on fire. Like once I kind of like, there's no steampunk that, besides your Clockwork Curandera, really. And I also want history, and I want those kind of stories that were rumbling in the background that were hugely significant at the time in Mexico's 19th century, mid-19th century, with Latinas, really the soldaderas and all these women really doing the hard, heavy work, yet not really part of our histories. They're becoming more, but still very hidden and unheard. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. Holy Yeah, so this is Steampunkera Chronicles, and the idea is it will, be one of our rockets launching the YA middle grade. And I think, the strategy on this one is we'll do a limited collector's edition that drops as an issue 1 in July, and then a full graphic novel around Christmas next year.
Right. Yeah. That is definitely the plan to have.
Yeah.
We want to have that first issue out for some time before, so that people are able to take a look at the art and get the story. Those are usually they're called non-stops, for those of you who are interested in like the terminology of the comic book industry. And yeah, we are super excited to see it then come out in winter of 2025. I think people are going to really enjoy the story that you're telling, and the visuals are just really amazing, and exploring historical moments in time through this science fiction / fantasy lens that is just so exciting. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's like I definitely have steampunk cred because I've dressed up steampunk way before.
I can't. I need to see photos. I'm sorry, receipts or
went to Avenue Park concerts. Totally have all their albums, and so it definitely brings this, and that's the thing. It's like people don't understand that we can take these worlds and really reflect our own history within them and share that out. And so I'm really excited for Prof's book, just because the revolution, it's something, bringing back something around with that neo-Victorian, that aesthetic that is just, it's so captivating, and that everything run by that little sense of sci-fi, with everything by steam.
And take
like with Moctezuma's sunstone there in the background here. It's great.
Yeah, so that's the other part, and where we integrate in a really organic way, and we saw this beautifully done already in the Clockwork Curandera that you did with Raul. But where we're integrating technologies, the arts, literature, design from, our pre-Columbian and those that continue to do that work after the conquest, but that, we hear very little of. So I think that's really powerful as well. So the steampunk, but an integration of linguistic, scientific advances, everything that, everything we love. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. What else do you want to share with people?
So some of the other things that I wanted to mention just around the corner is this great it's called Through Fences, and this is with my imprint with the Ohio State University Press, Mad Creek Books. It's called Latinographics, and let's see. I'm going to share just, basically it's called Through Fences. It's another one it's YA in terms of young or even pre-teen protagonists. The subject matter is very kind of hard and heavy, but at the same time, it really gets at the nuances of what it means to grow up in the borderlands of the US-Mexico, and the kinds of pressures, the kinds of internalized racism and sexism, all the kinds of things that, our youth struggle with, and sometimes and often meet with destructive ends or epiphanies that are tied to tragedies, because our typical way is only to hear about the border as a place of crossing, and usually as a place of, through the mainstream, a place of crossing that threatens, whether it's threatening jobs or threatening the way of American life, et cetera, the bad hombres. And in fact, there is a richness that we need to see in life, along the border. And I don't have to explain that to you, David, obviously, given, where you've chosen to live and have your family. But there's tragedy, but there's complexity in tragedy. There's celebration, and there is difficulty, and there's struggle, and there is triumph, and we need those stories. So Through Fences is really all about that.
Amazing. And yeah, I of course, as you know, I've clearly read it and have said good things about it. I love the combination of, estas palabras desgarradoras, you're like really, really moving and unsettling words, and Oscar Garza's choice of like artwork. It works really, really well together. Each one of these voices with a unique style, and I highly recommend it. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that really quickly, the visuals and the kind of, the choice to work with Oscar, who's known for his Mashbone and Grifty, and with Rolo Esquivel. And for, from the outside, it might not have been the obvious choice, because, Mashbone and Grifty is more edging, toward the cartoony and less toward this, say, photorealist way of visual storytelling in comics. But to be honest, we needed that. We needed the line work and the kind of way that Oscar's so good at drawing character, because I think if it had been too close to the, Batman Damned photorealism or something, it would have just been too heavy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes for a softening of what would otherwise just be heartrending, right? Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So I mean, absolutely recommend this to folks.
Yeah. So other cool things right around the corner. I just want to kind of share this with everyone. The Professor, not Professor Latinx, Latinx Pop magazine that I'm launching, doing a soft launch on November 11th. And our friends and partners for a long, long time, Latinx Spaces. I don't know what's happened over there, but in any case, hopefully that we'll be able to reestablish that. In the meanwhile, yeah, this is for everybody. Reviews, interviews, smart, talk pieces, thought pieces, anything in and around Latinx pop, music, video games, comics, of course, etc. And it will also be a hub for, resources. So of course, Carnales, the comics Carnales will be, linked. Our Primos will be linked. Pop Cult X will be linked. Sucias, all of our people will be, you'll be able to find them. And I'm doing this because we just need more of it. I also want our students, right? David, Héctor, not just our peer group, but students. We need to get them thinking about writing, thinking critically in a public way about all the really cool stuff that we're putting out in the world.
Absolutely. What a cool resource that will be.
It is.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely.
And then another exciting, kind of last, mention drop is this. So with Flower Song Press, and actually, David, is that another one of your many brainchilds?
Yeah. So Flower Song Press began as VAL Publishing, Valley Artistic Outreach Publishing, back in 2011. Valley Artistic Outreach was my wife's nonprofit that taught art classes to underserved children, because obviously art classes are not taught in elementary anymore. So she would go with artists into communities, into barrios, and teach classes. And then we created a publishing wing. And then over time, as my publishing career took off and I was unable to continue, so around that time we changed the name. Right before I let go of it, we changed the name to Flower Song Books. Handed over to Edward Vidaurre, who at the time was the Macallan Poet Laureate, I think at the time he was. And he's just done a really great job, and now it's called Flower Song Press. Just an amazing outfit that is putting out some great books. And I understand that you're kind of partnering up with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So and thank you for doing that, laying that important groundwork, of course. And, working with Edward's been wonderful. And so as you opened earlier talking about smallish independent presses opening doors, and I know you're partnered with distributors on a kind of national scale, and which is just beautiful, and love that. But we're still doing the hard work to open doors that are typically closed, that we've all been really fighting, both on the street, sort of boots on the street, but also in whatever capacities we can. And so, the launching of Brown Ink with, Flower Song Press is really an imprint dedicated to any combination of visual and textual story, poem, poetry, right? Any ways. It could be photography and words. It could be comic visuals and text, etc. But whatever combination you find yourself in, I want Brown Ink to be that place for publishing your work. And I'm going to launch with the Absolutely Almost True Adventures of Max Rodríguez. I think you can see that here.
I'll pull it up. There it is.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this one. It's it's Max starting 9th grade, and Max was born in Maxine, and Max always had a very clear sense that they were Max since they were little. Max is brilliant, and Max is completely into pop culture. Max was born with literally with their tongue tied, and the little flap that we have under our tongue was extended way too far, and they couldn't speak, so they jumped into reading everything that they could get their hands on. And it's really following Max and Max's adventures, and there's a kind of an epiphany moment, a double epiphany moment at the end, of the 9th grade and into the summer. And I'm excited. I'm excited that this is the one that's going to launch Brown Ink. And really, it's just continuing to do the kinds of works that you both are doing and that we're all doing, to open doors to a more expansive understanding of how story can be in our lives, and how story through visual and verbal means can be transformative.
Awesome. I'm so looking forward to that. And we have come pretty close to the end of our time. We're going to, like, really quickly, and Fede, I think you're going to enjoy this because I know you love these titles as well. We're going to take a quick look, just at some recommendations from Chispa for those of you who are looking for something for spooky season. Halloween is right around the corner. I mean, this episode may go up either the day before or on Halloween, depending on whether I can figure all that stuff out. I'm sure it'll go up on the 30th. But so we want to recommend, obviously, that you read some of our stuff. Hello, we got some spooky stuff over at chispacomics.com. You can find your way to some of these really cool titles. So let me pull up our website. If you've not taken a look at it before, it's chispacomics.com. By Latinas, about Latinas, for everyone. Our stories are for everyone. And we have tabs. These two tabs right here are what I want to pay attention to today. Black Demon Tales. It's an anthology based on the lore of real Mexican-American fishermen blended with indigenous beliefs. It's now a major motion picture that you can check out streaming on Amazon Prime, I believe. And this year we published the first volume, the first miniseries called Emergence. It had like a little short story that opened it up, and then we had issues 1, 2, and 3. Bella Blue, The Caravel on the Shrine, and Third Lock. Bella Blue happens in the 80s, and it's an incredible story written by Héctor Rodríguez III, el tercero de su linaje. Then I wrote the second story, which, as you can see, is obviously set in the past, 500 years ago, in fact. A really harrowing story. And then our good buddy and collaborator, Felipe Moreno, that's a pen name, it wrote this great alternate universe.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Of the Black Demon. So it's really great. And so those you can order those. I've got links here that will take you to a store to be able to buy them. But also the entire series is being collected into a graphic novel that it will be out on my birthday, February 27th. From Simon & Schuster. So there's the cover of that.
You can pre-order it today.
Yeah, pre-order it. It is an amazing series of stories. And I'm not saying that just because Hector and I wrote half of it. And there is that movie that Profe was talking about. And then we have our so amazing horror anthology, Katrina's Caravan, which is a creepy anthology featuring stories by the best Latinx writers of horror, as told by Katrina, a suspicious harbinger of darkness on the run from a violent priest. And our first volume, Catharsis, had amazing stories in it by Cynthia Pelayo and V. Castro, both of whom are award-winning horror writers, amazing members of our Latino community, and I really recommend it. And then some dude named Héctor Rodríguez III wrote that first one, The Night of La Lechuza.
Twists and turns. It's a good one.
Yeah, it is. It's a good one. It is pretty harrowing. And we already have some really great writers lined up for Volume 2, which will be coming in 2024. So if you like spooky stuff, I highly recommend checking those titles out, and checking out our website and seeing what else you might enjoy from there. We do have a lot coming out. We're going to be rolling out a title or two every month for the next year, and then building towards 2025 when we probably have like 3 titles a month coming out. So that's Chispa for you. We've got lots more coming in future episodes of this podcast. We hope that that you guys will continue to tune in. We want to thank our Carnal Fede for dropping by and chatting with us. You and I, we're going to be chatting in very different roles tomorrow evening, aren't we? Wow, we might have some more news to announce in a later episode. Have you pop in to give that announcement? That'll be a lot of fun.
So can I ask you really quick before we wrap, which
yes,
is
absolutely.
okay in the Bowles Rodríguez dynamic duo, is it can one make the fair analogy or not with the Kirby and Lee, or no?
What do you think?
It's more. It's a lot friendlier and more respectful.
That's a lot friendlier.
We have more respect towards each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what a good analogy would be. I mean, we're you know, I think that maybe if Héctor, like, if he were a little more dedicated, I mean, because obviously he is a great illustrator, but he spends most of his time writing. Although that cover for Zopilote is his. You should find it and show it before we go. Yeah, we do have a really cool dynamic, I think. Héctor is long suffering because I am. Although I'm an introvert, once the switch is flipped, it's really hard to get me to shut up until my battery dies, and then I can crawl back into my study. And so,
so what will we be getting cameos then with the two of you throughout the future of Chispa and the Black Demons and everything? I hope so. Anyway.
I do. I mean, I'm going to insist that the next film that has anything connected to the Chispa universe, feature us, even if we're just like a couple, like just two drunks like playing chess on the stage.
in the background.
I thought it would be hilarious. The fat widow and the fit like curly haired fronterizo.
We got some
we'll be like el pues como el gordo y flaco. It'll be great.
Oh, Cantinflas y Viruta, no.
Oh, ¿quién sería yo?
Viruta y Cantinflas.
Although I don't know that you have Cantinflas' personality, but anyway, I don't know.
No.
Yeah, you're much more laid back. Although I don't know. I mean, some of your lucha identity is scary as hell.
Oh yeah, and there was more to come.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait till we can like feature some of that on this podcast. I'm gonna have a whole episode just about what like mean rudo you were, like just like you were evil. You were a bad person. I was like, well, I've not seen this side of this man before. It was so fun. It was a lot of fun. Bueno, Fede and Héctor, I think that's all for us today. And I think our inaugural episode went really well. We'll see how people feel about it. But I appreciate you both being here. And there you go. You can order the 13 Origins Pyroclast. Get your comic store to order a bunch of copies online. Okay. Thank you. Cuídense mucho. Read a bunch of comics, and we'll be seeing you very, very soon. Let us bow out. Oh my gosh. Oh Lord. I don't even want to think about how I just totally like blew that one up. Anyway, bye guys. Take care. See y'all.